Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are here for the July 2018 Tabs3 virtual user group meeting, where today we are making a quick run through the What's New list for version 19 of Tabs and Accounts Payable and General Ledger and Trust, and it is going to be very exciting. I am so excited I can barely control myself. So now, without any further ado, the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm going to press a series of magic buttons that will take me to here, where the very first thing you will notice is that the horrible looking 1980s icon that you can still see there has been replaced by this wonderfully new and exciting icon, and you'll see it even more as we go in with the new splash screen. Did you see that there? That was pretty exciting, wasn't it? Now, I'm going to go into Tabs, and I hope I'm going in as the right user. I'm just going in as a blank user. The next thing you will notice is that we have icons that look a little bit bigger and text that looks a little bit bigger. If any of you ever got to a point where you got a new monitor and it had a lot more room, but tabs just stayed the same size, maybe even got smaller, that's been alleviated. The fonts that they use in the software now are scalable. They can get bigger and smaller in certain places, as can the pictures. So no longer gone are the days of that teeny little screen that you're used to from Tabs and the accounting software and maybe Practice Master. Now we are into a situation where the icons have a fresh look. They are bigger, they scale, and the fonts scale as well. So for people like me, and I guess I'm looking around here, I think everybody in this room has glasses on. For those of us that are having trouble seeing as we get older, this is a welcome change.
Okay, the next thing that you're going to see on here that's different, and you won't really see that at first. When you first install the software, it's going to give you an option to use this new theme, or you can use the classic theme. So if you've got, and this is user by user, so if you do have a couple of those people at your firm that just absolutely are not going to get on board with this new theme and it's just going to be too overwhelming for them, you do have a choice now underneath View to go into Theme Settings, and you can take them back to the Task Folder view and the Application Toolbar view, or you can just simply say set it back to the classic theme. They still get all the new features. They still will be able to do all the new things as far as you know, the main features, but they will have a different view and how to get there. So they wouldn't be taking full advantage of that option. And I've had firms that just as they're doing this trial and coming into version 19 say, nope, rip off the Band-Aid, everybody's going in, and we're all going to just go in head first and do this new theme. So it's really a firm decision, but if you do have a couple of those holdouts, just know that you can change that back for them. And then also just a quick new view over here on the left. We've got a new quick launch panel where you can pin actions, you can get your recent actions, even your recent matters. You can search for things that you want to do in the software, such as preparing statements or
transaction file list,
cash receipts report, anything like that. And then you've got these My Actions where you can actually go in and you can change what icons. And if you think back to the task folders and how you could pin your certain icons that you wanted to that task folder, you can do that under My Actions using the little cog wheel up here for the settings. Yep. So you can drag and drop and move things. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, but just know you can do that.
Know that next month we will be going over these new interface options in great detail. Mm-hmm. But also know that the people that at the firms that I've put this in already that we thought would be the ones that would resist the new theme, they love it. Mm-hmm. It was quite a shock to me. People that are like me, they don't like change, embraced the new theme and the new way of getting around very quickly. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's next, Mary Jo?
Online payments.
Okay, do I get to talk about that?
You can, or I can.
That's exciting. Okay, so we've added the ability. We've had a link that some people know about, some people didn't know about. If you use ProPay, you've always been able to send a link that your customers could go to. And they could say, I want to pay this much against, this is my client number, and that's really all they could do. That it didn't know how much they owed. It didn't know who they were. It didn't know what their client number was. And most importantly, if they did that, you then had to go and manually enter that payment anyways. So the new payment processing link is something that gets inserted into emailed statement templates so that when somebody gets a bill, it will have a link that they can click on, and it's really just the words "click here" with the link
or
underneath.
It could be a link.
It could be the link, but it's so big that you don't probably want to put that in there. And they click that link. It knows exactly how much money they owe. It knows exactly which statement they're paying. It knows who they are. And best yet, when you get those, when you get those payments, they just come into tabs automatically. You get notified, you go into a special routine, you click a button, and those payments are imported automatically. You don't have to re-enter them. So, very, very cool.
Yep. The next thing is you can apply payments to multiple matters. So before we could do that, I mean, we still could put payments to multiple matters, but we never knew when you were doing that which statement it was. So let's say you had matters out there that had multiple statements and, you know, different amounts due. All you saw was like the total due for each client. So now when you go into the the pay multiple matters, I'm on the wrong page. When you put in the multiple matters, you can see each matter's statement and how much is actually owed on each statement, what the date of the statement is, so you can go back and you can manually then say, oh, I want to pay this older statement instead of the other. Before it just was the whole lump sum of this matter owes X amount of dollars and you had to kind of guess. So that's a great feature there that shows.
Yeah, there just wasn't enough control before, and now you have that control right down to that statement level. This is one of my favorites for people that come from Juris, because this has been in Juris forever, and everybody always wants to do this when they come from Juris. We can now change the fee order on statements. So if you have 7 items, all from the same day, for a certain matter, for a certain client, and you don't like the order that they show up. Maybe it says, meet with clients to sign documents, and then 2 down it says, prepare documents for clients to sign. That obviously is not the order that that person's day flowed in. That's probably the order that they entered the fee transactions in, into the system in, but it's not the order that the day flowed in. And so now you can move those fee entries up and down within a given day. So you could take the prepare documents for client to sign and move it up above, meet with clients to have documents signed, so that it takes that natural transgression, that natural progression, and makes the bill read right.
Yeah. And I was just showing a couple places you can get to that reorder fees from pre-bill tracking, or actually up here on the menu as well to reorder fees. So you can get right in there and do that.
Yep.
We've also improved the handling of the credit transactions. So I think I skipped one, but we'll come back to that one. But we can improve that handling. So before, when you would put a credit transaction in, it really wouldn't know how that was tied to timekeepers, or how that was tied to whether it was costs or fees, what kind of a credit is it. And so now they've made that much easier to do. And when you actually prepare statements now, you can prepare credit memo statements only just by, there's 2 little boxes, one that will say include fee credits only and only include cost credits. And you can just include those to prepare statements and only get your credits instead. So that's just kind of a fast little thing that they've done to make it easier to handle those credits.
At first I was going to say that you didn't like the one you skipped, but it's an exciting one.
It is. I know. I looked at it, darn, I could have given all the credit transactions.
I get it now, yes.
Yeah.
If you've ever wanted to print a report with just totals by primary timekeeper, let's say you want to see, I don't know, AR, and you really just care about Bob's AR for his matters and George's AR for his matters and Melanie's AR for her matters, if you've done that without the detail, in the past, you would get a separate page with just those totals for Bob, and then another almost blank page with just those totals for George. So now there's a start each sort on a new page checkbox that defaults to not being checked, which means that if you don't have it checked, you could have a consolidated 1-page, very brief listing of the totals for, in my example, AR, without having each primary timekeeper or originating timekeeper be on a separate page.
And that option is now available in all reports, whereas before it was only available in like 1 or 2 reports. And so now that's across the board. You can do that for all of those. So statements. Now, this is just a small change, but it affects things because when you print out statements before, we always had a column for date, timekeeper, description, rate, hours, and there was always a heading above all those columns until you got to amount, and amount would be blank. So it would have a header, 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 nothing. And so now there is an amount header, so that makes it really nice, so it's kind of consistent there. And now you can exclude clients who only have a credit balance when you're running statements by excluding the credit balance only client. So before you would have to run them and pull those statements out and not send them. Now you can just say exclude anybody that has a credit, just give me the ones that actually have a balance.
The statement designer, this was actually added a little bit earlier in version 18.1.4.793 for those of you that are keeping score. But it's listed here. We now can take the client notes field and put it on the statement designer. What that means is, for those of you who've struggled with miscellaneous line 1, 2, and 3 and work description not being enough to hold everything you need, we had a client recently that took in a new attorney that did some very complex real estate transactions, and those descriptions of that work that were to appear at the top of the bill were much longer than the 4 lines of 60 characters each that you get with miscellaneous 1, 2, 3 plus work description. So statement notes is a memo field, and I'm sorry, the client notes field is a memo field, and so that means it can hold, what is it, Mary Jo? I think it's 5,000 characters. It's a lot of text. And so you can have that entire client note appear at the top of the bill as the designator, the identifier of what that matter is for, what that statement's for.
Okay, so the updating statements routine has become a little bit more faster. In certain situations, they've made a couple of speed improvements on that. That's pretty small. But if you are in let's say a fee window, I'm going to do a new thing here.
Oh, now she's consolidating.
Well,
she's consolidating now.
So small. That wasn't really even a fair thing to have as a topic. So I'm going to do 2. So here at the bottom of these list screens, before in this description, it would truncate it. And so it would be limited like 50 characters of the fee description or the cost description or the payment description. And so now this is going to hold as much as you've typed into this description memo box. It's not going to truncate that. And that was a pain if you were in there trying to, edit statements or something before, drafts and things, and you couldn't see the whole description of what it was. So now these descriptions are the full description. And then hovering over the description column also gives you some little tips, and I'm trying to hover and it's not letting me hover.
Well, because you can see the whole thing.
Yeah, so.
It's just if your description is longer than will fit there.
Yes, it would pop up and it would show me. Yeah.
We've seen that behavior in the Matter Manager. If you're seeing something and hover over it, it'll show the whole field.
Yep,
Same thing that's happening here. My next one is kind of boring. Maybe I should consolidate 2. But it's important. The transaction code for fee and cost entries plus the transaction code for payment entries now default to what you used last time. When you first go in there, at least in prior versions, when you would first go in there, it would always default to the lowest numbered code, which, people got used to, but now it defaults to whatever you used last time. So if you're entering the same thing over and over and over again, then you get out and you come back in, it's going to default to the same code instead of you having to change it again. Little thing, but helpful when it comes to entering data. Does that mean I get to do the next one too?
You can if you want to.
Well, I have to read it. Do you know what it is already?
Yeah, it's going to be the same thing as what I said with the entry list of that description.
That's right.
So if you're on a lookup field like client lookup, or you're on a fee lookup or whatever, the work description again is just going to be all of it. It's not going to truncate it. So, yeah.
In customization, we've added a default fund application method. So if you're using client funds, you can now default what you want the fund application method to be for all new matters that you open up. We run into that a lot around here because we'll forget to turn that on because it doesn't default to anything. and then we'll print a bill, and we'll have to just go change it and print it again, and hopefully we'll notice it before we send the bill out. Now, that's something that you can set as a default, and it just makes it easier.
It's over here. It's under client defaults. Yep.
And do you know what this next one means, Mary Jo? I'm trying to read it.
Let's see, so write up and write down fees and costs. So they've added the ability to write up or write down all matters for a client at the same time. So before you had to go into each individual matter and write down or write up all that time. So let's say you had a client that had 3 matters and you wanted to write it all down to 0 or all up to a certain amount. You had to go into each matter individually. Well, now you can go in and you can write those all up together at the same time. You don't have to go in 3 times. You can go in once. So that's what that is.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-bill tracking, for those of you that use it, it has always in the past been a single access function, meaning that if Mary Jo were in pre-bill tracking and I tried to go into pre-bill tracking at the same time, I would not be allowed in. It is now a multi-user function, meaning that I can go in while Mary Jo's in there. And that really changed things around here too, because we use that. Mary Jo had used it quite a bit. I had not used it much at all when we were reviewing bills because I couldn't get in there, and now both of us can be in there. So that's significant to some of our clients. It certainly was to us. And
when we go into that in more detail, we'll give you a couple of little gotcha things to watch out for with that. But
yeah,
you know, for today, that is possible now for you to do that. But there are some things that we'll want you to be aware of when we go into detail on that.
A lot of the things that we're talking about today, we're really just trying to cover everything. Keep in mind that a lot of these we will come back to in future virtual user group meetings and covering much greater detail.
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive into all of these, I think, at some point. So.
Right.
Yep. So the next one is the timer. So resetting the timer now includes an optional confirmation message, which will help you, hopefully helps to eliminate accidental resets. So if you're in there and you're trying to reset a timer, there'll be a message that says, are you sure you want to do this now? So that's just to help you so you don't reset an active one. Now that's in tabs. I'm not talking about the Practice Master timer. I'm talking about if you accidentally, in a tabs fee entry, there is a timer. And if you accidentally hit reset, you just wiped out all of your time. It's going to actually prompt you this time to stop that.
We have a new recap of hours, and I think we still have the old one, Mary Jo, right? For those that really want the one that doesn't look quite as graphical as the one we're about to show you.
Just a real quick difference so you know what the differences are. The recap of hours report is the same report you're used to. So if you come over to the side and I typed in recap of hours report, that's going to be the calendar view that you're used to seeing. What we're talking about now is the graphical view of a recap of hours.
And so it looks something like this. It's more graphical. It's easier to visualize. It does have ad fee right there. It's got certain bits of information that you didn't have before. And it's just more pleasing to the eye. And because of that, it's easier to take a quick glimpse and see what's going on.
It's really, really cool. Let's see. The fee compensation rules report has a little change in that. They've added the ability to include allocation amounts for each rule. So you can now include the total amount allocated for each rule, and optionally you can also include the amount allocated by payment for each rule. Now that also was available in version 18 in one of the later releases of version 18, but they are hitting that here with our 19. So it's not necessarily a brand new feature, but some of you may not have been on that code that had that included in it.
Okay, skipping over to General Ledger, I'm just going to very briefly say that we now have a statement of cash flows report, which basically is a cash flow report. It's something that's been asked for quite a bit, and it is in General Ledger now. We'll go into more detail on that later.
We also have an advanced client cost report now. So what that's going to do is it's going to take how much you've actually written checks for advances in AP. It's going to verify that against how much is in tabs that has not been paid on those advances that you've written checks on. And it's then going to also look at that in your GL, and you're going to be able to see and compare which of these cost entries have not been paid yet. So that's huge. I mean, that everybody always has a problem with trying to reconcile those client cost advance, and now they're going to be able to do that with this report.
And to make that happen, we've added in the account setup in General Ledger the ability to designate a task as an account as the advanced client costs account. And that's how that reconciliation report, that advanced client cost report, is able to tell what's in GL, what's in tabs, and what's been paid. And that's the GL part for identifying that.
So for accounts payable, we're going to jump over to that really quick. For that, you have now the ability to mark vendors as inactive.
Yay.
So yeah, if you had old vendors that you didn't want to use anymore, you didn't want people to see, now you can mark those vendors inactive. And that's where you do that there.
And of course, that means that we now have the ability to exclude inactive vendors from the lookup window, the list, the analysis report, and the vendor labels.
And we also have the ability to designate bank accounts as inactive.
Yay!
That's another one. You might have switched banks and you have all these old bank accounts out there. So now you can, in accounts payable, also inactivate bank accounts as well, so they no longer show up when you're trying to do an invoice.
I think you should take the next one because it's pretty exciting too.
Yes, I really like this one. So in our invoices, now we have the ability to check an option for EFTs. So we can enter all those debit card transactions that the attorneys are doing at the court, and you know, we always had to go do a manual journal entry for that, or try to figure out some way to do a manual check with some weird check number so we could designate them differently. Well, now all you have to do is click on EFT. All your bank account stays the same. It will be marked as an EFT on your reconciliation, and it's just awesome. I actually really, really like that. And then you also can post your checks and EFTs. They've changed the language there, and they've also changed the language with voiding checks. It's voided posted checks or EFTs. So the language has changed a little bit to include that EFT option.
In the print checks, we now have the ability to see the total number and the total amount for the invoices that we have checked as being those that we're going to pay. So if you're looking at a list with dozens and dozens of checks and you're only going to take 7 or 8 of them and mark them off, now you can see that you've gotten 8 of them marked off, and you can see exactly how much that is. So you can see at a glance if that matches up with what you thought you were doing. We also can now see whether or not that invoice has been paid if it's associated with a tabs cost. So if you've got an invoice for a medical records request that you've agreed, the vendor has agreed that you don't have to pay it till you get paid by the, well, let's use something different, court reporter fees. And the court reporter said, you don't need to pay us until you get paid by the client. You can now see on this, this list of invoices to pay, as you are selecting them, whether or not they have been paid by the client. In fact, that is something that was so important to quite a few of our clients that we in the past have written a custom report that we've sold to several people because they needed to know that. Now the software itself takes care of that for you, so you don't need something special to tell you that.
In accounts payable, we also have spell check now available in our cost entries. So when we are putting in an invoice and we go to that third screen where we're going to bill the client, spell check is now available for that. So, and access to the dictionary and spell check options is also available as well in accounts payable. And
there are several reports, check register, pre-check, cash requirements, invoice by vendor, invoice by voucher, that now include some information that make it even more easy to reconcile against the AP against the GL and tabs. We are including information on whether the check was an EFT. If it is, we're putting that language in there, and we're including the transaction type, whether it's an expense or an advance, whether it's paid or unpaid. So all this information is now on those reports and those lists, so that it just makes it easier to see from one system to another what are advances versus expenses, what's an EFT versus a manual check or a system produced check. All those things are there now.
We also have the ability to, well, we've changed the import invoices program from being an exclusive function where everybody's got to be out to just being a single access function. So somebody can then do that. You can just take off, you know, close all your current windows and you can bring it in instead of having to get everybody out of the program to do it. I'll just jump to that. That was pretty short, Paul. So the APS customization. So when you're integrating with accounts payable and that Tabs 3 window pops up to ask the client, do you want to bill the client? I'm sorry, this basically was saying, do you want to bill the client for this cost advance entry? You can configure it so it will only pop if you're using a client cost advance account. So on that second GL screen, if you pick the client cost advance account, that third window will pop. But if you don't pick an account that is checked as a client cost advance account, that third window won't pop. So right now, as it stands, it pops every single time, and maybe half the time you need it and you have to close it. The other half, now you can designate that so it does not pop if it's not necessary.
Very nice. 1099 miscellaneous forms. We added support for payer ID number in box 17.
State payer ID.
Yeah,
number,
state payer ID number in box 17. We know of only one state where that's required. It's Wisconsin. I'm curious to know if anybody else knows of another state where that's necessary. We don't think there is one. I'll just go on and say that we added the same thing in trust accounting. We added the same extra fields. We added the same extra, all of the descriptions of the entry lists in trust accounting, just like Mary Jo described when you're in a fee entry window and it's got a list at the bottom. It used to only show the first 50 characters, now it shows all. And we also, in trust accounting, now allow you to mark a bank account as inactive, same as we had in accounts payable.
Okay, and then just really quick, some miscellaneous changes that are global for all programs. We do have improvements in the help window, so you can go up to the help about window and you can click in that. For the current working directory, it will just open to that. The new database folder, so all of your data files that you have are now stored in a separate folder. This is all back office structural stuff. The data file integrity check improved the error 145, user not defined. So there's just some little things here, new state ID.
And we have a field to hold that state ID if you're in Wisconsin.
Yep.
And the last thing is that the same graphical recap of hours that we just saw in Tabs is also now available in Tabs3 Connect. So your timekeepers that are entering time through Tabs3 Connect can see the same recap of hours that they can see now in Tabs.
And then just a quick FYI, if you're going to download version 19, just be aware that it is the requirements that you're going to need are Windows 7, SP1 or later, and a Windows Server of 2008 R2 or later. So any firm using 7 or someone else need to install a different Windows patch, which I've had that at a firm already.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just a quick little patch. It's not what do they call those? Critical
it's
update.
Not a critical update, no.
It's one of the non-important updates, but you still need it. So anyway.
And that's that. So your next question, of course, is going to be, how can I get it? And Patty, we also have a question from Patty. Let's go ahead and get that one in there, and then we'll talk about how we can get version 19. Did I say version 17?
Oh, wow.
Patty?
Okay, yeah, this is going back to the recap of hours report, and Tatiana is wondering if you are able to show what the month view looks like.
Sure, we can do that real quick.
Of the
recap of hours.
Okay, let me get over here.
Tabs.
So this is the week view. Here is the month view. So I'm looking at the whole, I got all these days. I don't have a lot of stuff on all the days because
sample data.
But every day would have, something. This is the graphical view. Now, if you still like that old calendar view that we had before, it's just the recap of hours report, where this is the recap. And again, we're going to go into more detail on this when we hit this topic later and really show you how to do these things. But you can get in here by day, week, month. You can shift this over, right and left. But, that's just kind of a quick overview.
So how do you get it? Well, SGI has a history of providing really good support. And so they roll these updates out in a kind of they drip them out, I guess is a good way to say it. So what'll happen is they'll start informing firms, let's say 500 at a time for a little bit of time, maybe every couple of days they'll release it to another 500. And then as they start to get their bearings as far as what their support requirements are as they roll it out, they'll probably up that number and start rolling it out to 1,000 people at a time, firms at a time, and maybe even up to 2,000 at a time. Bottom line is, by the end of the summer, if you are on maintenance and you're entitled to version 19, you should be able to get it. by waiting and being notified. Now, if you really, really, really want one of these things that we've shown you or that we're going to show you in future virtual user group meetings, and you'd really like it right now, all you need to do is let me know. And my email address is paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, P-U-R-D-U-E, paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com. So if you'll email me, I will try and get it to you sooner, simply by requesting that you get it ahead of time. We can't just throw it out to everybody that way, but there are some people that are dying to get their hands on it, and there are others that are perfectly happy to wait a couple weeks or a month or so and get it in the roll. Next month, we are going to take a deep dive into the new look, feel, and navigation of Tabs3 and naturally the accounting software. So all those things that we were kind of breezed over at the beginning about the new quick launch bar, the recent actions, the recent matters, the pinned actions, the home area that has the My Actions and all the customizability of this. And this is as customizable times 10 of what you had in the task folders before. So there's a lot of neat stuff there. How to get around, how to set your theme settings, how to use this new interface. That's what we'll be talking about next month. And of course, it wouldn't be the end of a virtual user group meeting if I didn't take you here to tell you that if you go to attorneycomputersystems.com, I emphasize that last S in the word systems, you will get to our website where you are then able to click on the word videos up here. And when you do that, you'll be taken to a page that lists all of our video titles, not just the one that you're listening to right now, which of course is the Tabs3 virtual user group meeting. We also have a Practice Master and a World Docs virtual user group meeting. We also have another live event. It's my Coffee Pot webinar series where I invite people from companies that have products that add value to either Tabs3 or Practice Master or World Docs to come on and explain to us what their product does and how to get it and how it adds value to one of those three products. We also have some pre-recorded non-live titles. Mary Jo has her eBytes video series. She makes 3 of these every month, one on Tabs, one on Practice Master, one on World Docs. They're short, they're 2 or 3 minutes long. And so we take something really cool that we think everybody needs to know about and that is can be explained in a very concise 2 or 3 minute video, and we record an eByte for that. For those topics that we think everybody needs to know about, but that take a little longer to get into, to dig deeper into, we have the Paul and Mary Jo Show. We record one of those each month, and we do rotate through the different products, World Docs, Practice Master, and Tabs. And I or Mary Jo will take a deeper dive. We'll take 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes longer, to get really down into the nitty-gritty of whatever it is that we're talking about. So that's that. These videos are available for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Please take advantage of them. They're free and they're out there and they're ready for you and they're waiting. Everybody have a good rest of the day, good rest of the month, and we'll see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.